over it.
Shit, when you get to that line, have you ever been convicted of...
He could then start making...
Have you ever been
No
arrested
experience is doing nothing. I ain't,
Word.
Lil Durk has discovered a way to make his voice heard despite being behind bars, using his music to deliver a message that's sparking widespread discussion. With legal challenges hanging over him and an uncertain future ahead, this bold move could change the game. But what exactly is he trying to say? Is it a warning to his foes or a calculated step to control the story? Let's delve into the message behind Lil Durk's latest release. His album, Deep Thoughts, dropped under extraordinary conditions on March 28, 2025, while the Chicago rapper awaited trial in a Los Angeles jail for federal murder for hire charges. This 17-track project serves not only as a creative outlet, but also as a strategic play against accusations he orchestrated the 2022 killing of rival rapper Kondo Rondo and another gang-related hit in Chicago. Remarkably, the entire album was crafted through monitored prison phone calls. This raw, stripped-down production process, documented in a gritty mini-film mixing studio footage and news coverage of his arrest, showcases producers holding phones to studio speakers as Durk Records versus remotely. With limited resources, the team leaned into a minimalist style, raw vocals laid over basic beats, with no fancy vocal layering or experimental production. Beneath the melodic trap anthems and heavyweight collaborations, featuring stars like Future and Jhené Aiko, lies a carefully constructed narrative. This narrative appears designed to maintain Durk's legacy, keep his street cred intact, and perhaps even influence public perception ahead of his October 2024 trial. Deep Thoughts carries an unmistakable weight, shaped by the looming possibility of a life sentence. His lyrics are notably censored, with violent lines omitted or toned down to avoid being used against him in court. For instance, an unreleased version of the track 1,000 Times included the threatening line, "I'm gonna kill him and I shoot him dead for any child of mine," but the official release omits this entirely. Another song, Vanish Mode, avoids certain words like gun and 3, which some fans see as legally cautious rather than creatively liberating. Critics have picked apart the album, calling it overly sanitized compared to the raw, confessional tone of past tracks like 7220's Pecco or The Voice's Head Taps. Some listeners see the restraint as necessary, recognizing that openly rapping about bodies is off the table with federal authorities tuned in. This balancing act between raw authenticity and careful self-preservation becomes a defining thread in the album. Tracks like Monitoring Me nod to the constant surveillance, with lyrics referencing wiretaps and mounting paranoia. Meanwhile, Opportunist frames Durk as a seasoned survivor, navigating betrayal and mistrust. Yet these moments feel calculated, deliberately vague, steering clear of details that might incriminate him. The album's collaborations also appear strategic. Future's appearance on They Want to Be You adds street cred without introducing legal complications, while Jhené Aiko's soulful chorus on Can't Hide It brings a softer, more introspective edge. This interplay creates a sharp contrast with the cold, unyielding persona that prosecutors have painted. Even the AI-generated album cover, featuring a shadowy figure in a stylized cell, deliberately avoids realistic prison imagery, symbolizing Durk's attempt to shape his narrative while maintaining distance from his harsh reality. The fan base remains divided. Some lament the absence of raw, unfiltered storytelling that once defined Durk's early career, craving the heartfelt pain songs that established him as a pioneer of drill music. Others wonder what happened to the unvarnished moment of truth energy, referencing his 2021 track about his brother's death. On the other hand, some fans embrace Deep Thoughts as a sign of maturity, citing introspective tracks like Notebook No Hook, where Durk reflects on fatherhood and personal loss over sparse piano loops. The rollout, however, leaves questions unanswered. Tracks like Discontinuing Walk Hard and rumors of a Sabrina-featured scrap have sparked speculation about a more provocative original cut. Observers point out rushed edits, sudden bleeps, and reworked verses, hinting at last-minute legal interventions. Despite these imperfections, many loyal fans see the album's mere existence as a victory. Durk, after all, is fighting for his freedom and still managing to release music, a grind they find worthy of respect. Every song on Deep Thoughts appears to serve a dual purpose. Loyalty-themed tracks like Thinky Load speak to both the streets and the courtroom, portraying Durk as a cautious leader surrounded by treachery. Tracks like Alam Dalila and Deep Depression zero in on themes of redemption and mental health, presenting Durk in a more relatable light as his trial approaches. Even the documentary footage works to humanize him, showcasing his role as a dedicated father, far from the ruthless image the prosecution is trying to paint. It's a tense, high-stakes game, where every move could tip the balance. This approach mirrors the strategy used by fellow rapper Young Thug during his RICO trial, where music releases helped keep him culturally relevant. Durk's team appears to be following a similar playbook, using the album as a way to sustain streaming numbers and court public sympathy. Yet the stakes are even higher here, with federal charges that carry potential life sentences. Deep Thoughts might end up being Durk's swan song, or it could lay the groundwork for a triumphant comeback if he's acquitted. The album's ultimate legacy will hinge on the outcome of the October trial. A conviction would cast Deep Thoughts as a poignant final statement, its warning seen as grim foreshadowing. On the other hand, an acquittal could elevate it into a tale of survival and strength, a story of turning adversity into legend. Right now, Durk finds himself caught between two worlds, the streets that shaped him and the courtroom that could seal his fate. Deep Thoughts may be making waves, but it leaves an even bigger question hanging in the air. How did this murder-for-hire scheme land him in jail in the first place? The case stems from a federal indictment filed in October 2024. Grammy-winning Chicago rapper Lil Durk was arrested in Broward County, Florida, on charges of conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Prosecutors accuse him of orchestrating a 2022 shooting in Los Angeles aimed at rival rapper Quando Rondo. The attack was reportedly linked to the 2020 death of Durk's protege, King Von. Although the intended target was Quando, the assault ended up killing his cousin, Savia Lil Po Robinson, who was in the same vehicle. According to the indictment, Durk allegedly financed the operation through his OTF, Only the Family rap collective, offering money and lucrative music opportunities to those who would carry out the hit. This case is rooted in long-standing tensions between Durk's crew and Quando's associates. Back in 2020, King Von was killed in a shootout involving Quando's crew in Atlanta, although charges against Quando's affiliate were later dropped. Federal investigators allege that Durk sought revenge, leading to the 2022 plot. The prosecution's case hinges on three key pillars, starting with financial records. Investigators claim OTF-connected credit cards were used to cover travel, hotels, and rental cars linked to the alleged hitmen. Linking Durk to the alleged conspiracy, flight records show that the suspects flew from Chicago to Los Angeles just days before the shooting, with travel costs reportedly covered by OTF accounts. The government's second pillar of evidence comes from digital communication. Prosecutors have compiled over 230 gigabytes of wiretapped calls, text messages, and social media exchanges, claiming these include coded language about the hit. For example, phrases like "smoke that boy" and "handle business" are argued to reference the planned attack. In a 2023 FBI affidavit related to an unrelated Chicago investigation, Durk is also accused of seeking retribution for his brother, Dante Banks' 2021 murder. This document alleges Durk offered money to target suspected Gangster Disciples members, further cementing the image of him as someone deeply entrenched in retaliatory violence. The affidavit played a significant role in denying Durk bail, portraying him as a continuing threat. The third piece of the prosecution's case is witness testimony. Federal filings reference unnamed cooperators, including one alleged shooter who turned informant to avoid a life sentence. These witnesses have reportedly linked Durk to the early planning of the hit. However, their credibility remains untested in court. Durk's situation is grim. Conspiracy charges mean he can be held as culpable as those who physically carried out the crime. Additional firearm enhancements could trigger mandatory minimum sentences, and one charge alleges the use of a machine gun in connection with the crime. The prosecution also points to a pattern of potential flight risk, citing 3 booked but unused flights to Dubai, Italy, and Switzerland shortly after his associates were taken into custody. Although his trial was originally scheduled for January 2025, both sides agreed to postpone it until October 2025 due to the case's complexity. The defense is expected to argue that Durk's name was exploited for credit card use without his knowledge or consent. They may also assert that the so-called coded language in the digital evidence reflects artistic expression rather than criminal intent. Unsealed court documents add another layer of intrigue, referencing a separate, 2022 murder-for-hire plot in Chicago that prosecutors claim was also driven by a desire for revenge over his brother's death, though no formal charges have been filed in that case. In this case, prosecutors relied on texts allegedly discussing payments for the killing of Stefan Mack, a suspected gangster disciples leader, as part of their argument to keep Durk detained before trial. This parallel case poses a significant challenge for the defense. Jurors might interpret it as evidence of a broader pattern of criminal behavior. The controversy surrounding Durk's trial also highlights the ongoing debate over using rap lyrics as evidence. Prosecutors intend to present certain lyrics from his songs as potential admissions of guilt. Lines such as "I'll pay $1 million just to see him dead" could be framed as confessions rather than artistic storytelling. This practice has drawn criticism from experts, including Eric Nielsen, who argued that prosecutors are weaponizing artistic expression. Durk's legal troubles have quickly tarnished his public image. His $150,000 donation to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's campaign prompted backlash, with critics demanding the funds be returned. Suburban communities like Broadview hastily revoked honorary keys to the city that Durk had been granted only weeks before his arrest. This sudden shift reflects a steep fall from his previously celebrated status. The hip-hop community remains divided. Some supporters argue that the case against Durk is circumstantial, noting his lack of a prior violent criminal record and the absence of direct evidence linking him to the shooting. Others view the indictment as the inevitable result of OTF's association with Chicago's drill music scene and Durk's lyrical focus on street life. The arrest has sent shockwaves through the industry, with prominent collaborators like Drake and J. Cole opting to remain silent, keeping their distance from the controversy. Durk's future hinges on a few possible outcomes. A plea deal, common in federal cases, could see him serving a reduced sentence of 20 to 30 years if he accepts responsibility. If convicted at trial, Durk faces the potential of life in prison under federal sentencing guidelines. Acquittal, though unlikely, would depend on his legal team's ability to undermine witness credibility or expose flaws in the digital evidence. This trial is about more than just Durk's freedom. A conviction could set a precedent for the use of rap lyrics as evidence, while an acquittal would fuel arguments that the legal system unfairly targets hip-hop artists. With the trial scheduled for October 2025, the stakes couldn't be higher. Durk's career has long straddled the line between street life and rap fame, and the trial's outcome will determine which of those forces ultimately defines his legacy. His story underscores how drill music's tales of loyalty and violence often spill over into real life. In 2023, Durk found himself caught in a shocking controversy. His 10-year-old son and the child's mother were accused of shooting her boyfriend 6 times. Though no charges were ultimately filed, the incident quickly went viral. Fans dissected the situation's connection to Durk's music, with social media abuzz over how he might incorporate it into his lyrics. Some users joked about lines like, "Growing up in the trenches was tough, but it wasn't that bad," and "Had a sit down with my son, he shot his stepdad." Others nicknamed the boy Baby Threat, a dark nod to Chicago's reputation for youth violence. Critics called it a sobering example of how children raised in drill-heavy environments come to see conflict as normal. Supporters, however, dismissed it as a private family matter. Either way, the incident became a potent symbol of the blurry line between Durk's music and his personal life. Durk's long-standing rivalry with Chief Keef, one of Chicago's drill music pioneers, stretches back to 2013. After Durk's arrest on gun charges, he reportedly turned to Keef for help, paying his $10,000 bail, but Keef declined. Feeling slighted, Durk retaliated on Twitter, calling out Keef's crew, GBE, and making a pointed reference to their shared OTF 300 affiliations, writing, "You'd be dead if it wasn't for 300. While the two briefly patched things up, their feud reignited in 2015 when Durk took shots at Keef on the Shaq remix, rapping, "Just say me and Sosa beefing, but we both eating. Only one king." Fans interpreted this line as Durk mocking Keef's fading relevance. Keef hit back by supporting Tyga and Game's diss track against Durk, further widening the rift. Their conflict illuminated a deeper divide within Chicago's drill scene. Durk's pursuit of mainstream success versus Keef's dedication to the raw, unfiltered roots of drill. Observers noted that, unlike other OTF affiliates like Lil Reese, Durk avoided collaborating directly with Keef, leading many to speculate that industry ambitions had driven them apart. Durk's loyalty to his original neighborhood, Larin 300, also became a source of tension. Despite reportedly sending cars, guns, and money to support the block, some members accused him of turning his back on them. The breaking point came after Durk's brother, D-Thang, was killed in 2014. Laren 300 expected swift retaliation, but Durk instead channeled his energy into his career. Feeling abandoned, the block branded him a clout chaser and effectively exiled him, even releasing diss tracks targeting him. Durk, in turn, fired back through songs like Jesse and OJ Rats, mocking his former allies as snitches and reinforcing his new, more independent identity. The debate over Durk's actions laid bare a sharp divide. On one hand, some fans believed he had simply matured, leaving street politics behind in favor of family and career. On the other, critics accused him of being a studio gangster who had exploited his background for fame. The controversy revealed an unsettling truth about drill culture. In some circles, perceived disloyalty can quickly erase years of support and respect. King Von's tragic death in 2020 during a shootout reportedly involving NBA YoungBoy's crew became a flashpoint in one of hip-hop's most bitter rivalries. Once collaborators Durk and YoungBoy turned into fierce enemies. YoungBoy's track, I Hate YoungBoy, mocked Durk's grief, while Durk's collaboration on Back in Blood seemed to hint at retaliation. The feud spilled over onto social media, where YoungBoy taunted Durk about his parenting and ongoing legal troubles. Fans were split. Some saw the animosity as genuine, while others dismissed it as a publicity stunt. On forums like Reddit, skeptics questioned why Durk hadn't retaliated if he was truly about that life. Supporters, meanwhile, argued that he was making a conscious choice to focus on his career and loved ones. This bitter conflict reflected a deeper tension within the rap industry, where personal tragedy and professional rivalries often fuel both creative output and financial success. Pain became both an artistic inspiration and a marketable commodity. Complicating matters further, Chicago rapper 600 Breezy publicly criticized Durk, accusing him of profiting off Von's legacy and questioning his loyalty. Breezy even suggested that Von would have eclipsed Durk in fame if he were still alive. Although Durk refrained from direct responses, Breezy's continued provocations made it seem like he was seeking attention through controversy. Observers on social media pointed out how this mirrored a broader issue within drill culture. Some artists appeared to leverage real-life trauma for clout. While certain fans found the drama entertaining, others viewed it as exploitative, arguing that it perpetuated violence in already vulnerable communities. Durk's music, often touching on themes of revenge and violence, had even landed him in legal trouble. Courts scrutinized his lyrics, using them to suggest a connection between his art and real-life actions. This ongoing controversy blurred the line between creative expression and potential self-incrimination. Critics have used this situation to bolster long-standing claims that drill music glorifies violence and perpetuates cycles of retaliation. Meanwhile, supporters counter that these accusations reflect a racial double standard, pointing out that artists in genres like rock or country are rarely scrutinized for fictional lyrics. The debate over Durk's authenticity continues to rage online, with fans and detractors dissecting his every move. Supporters cite his early mixtapes, such as Signed to the Streets, and the personal tragedies he's endured, like the loss of his brother, as evidence of his authenticity and deep connection to his roots. Critics, however, highlight his industry connections, luxurious lifestyle, and his lack of direct retaliation for King Von's death as signs that his street persona might not be entirely genuine. Even Durk's philanthropic efforts, such as funding scholarships for Chicago youth, fuel disagreement. To some, it's a heartfelt gesture of giving back to his community. To others, it appears as a calculated move to counter negative press and solidify his career. This duality paints Durk as a paradoxical figure, a father caught in a web of violence, an artist whose lyrics have become legal liabilities, and a rapper accused of abandoning the very block that gave him his start. His ongoing feuds also expose the razor-thin line in rap between real-life authenticity and performative art. The legal scrutiny surrounding his lyrics further complicates this dynamic, raising questions about whether artists can ever truly separate their artistic personas from their real-world actions. With a history of past controversies and fresh legal challenges mounting, the larger question looms: what lies ahead for Lil Durk? Once a dominant force in Chicago's drill scene and a chart-topping rap phenomenon, Durk now faces a critical moment in his life and career. Federal charges, including the serious indictment for murder for hire related to the 2022 killing of Lil Poe, have left him at a crossroads. Prosecutors allege that Durk used his OTF collective's credit cards to fund travel, weapons, and lodging for the individuals accused of carrying out the botched retaliation plot targeting rapper Quando Rondo. With the trial scheduled for October 2024, Durk's legal troubles have put not just his freedom, but also his career and cultural legacy in jeopardy. At stake is the question of whether he can survive the crushing weight of these charges, or whether his story will end as a cautionary tale. The prosecution's case is built on a mountain of evidence, over 230 gigabytes of digital data, detailed financial records, and testimony from cooperating witnesses. With federal conviction rates consistently exceeding 90%, the odds against Durk are steep, leaving his legal team few viable options. One path might be pursuing a plea deal that reduces the charges in exchange for a lesser sentence. Even so, the severity of the alleged crime and its fatal consequences mean a plea deal could still result in 20 or 30 years behind bars. A plea bargain would require Durk to admit guilt, which could spare him from life imprisonment, but would come at the cost of his street credibility. On the other hand, his defense team could challenge the prosecution's evidence by asserting that OTF associates acted without his direction, or by framing Durk's violent lyrics as purely artistic expression rather than criminal intent. Yet this defense faces an uphill battle. Courts are increasingly allowing rap lyrics to be used as evidence, a trend critics claim unfairly criminalizes black art. A more ominous possibility is that the case could expand into a full-blown RICO indictment. This would bring additional charges tied to gang-related activities and rope in more co-defendants. If this happens, the case would bear an eerie resemblance to Young Thug's ongoing trial in Atlanta, where lyrics and affiliations were leveraged to construct a narrative of organized criminal conspiracy. For Durk, a RICO charge would mean prolonged court proceedings, skyrocketing legal costs, and an even greater risk of a life sentence. Currently, Durk sits in a federal detention center, having been denied bail due to concerns he might flee. Prosecutors pointed to his attempts to book international flights to destinations such as Dubai, Italy, and Switzerland following the arrests of his associates, portraying him as a flight risk. Without bail, Durk is unable to directly manage his music career or oversee the OTF brand. He must rely on material recorded before his arrest and on others to handle business on his behalf. His 2025 album Deep Thoughts, which was completed using monitored prison phone calls and existing recordings, reflects the constraints of his current situation. While the music itself may keep his name in the conversation, its commercial potential is hindered by the absence of tours, viral video appearances, and in-person promotional events. Financially, the burden is immense. Legal defense costs in a federal case often surpass $1 million, and those expenses are compounded by the revenue lost from canceled tours, stalled endorsements, and possible dissolution of lucrative brand partnerships with companies like Fashion Nova and Cash App. Companies in seeking to steer clear of controversy have begun distancing themselves. OTF's internal stability has also started to falter without Durk at the helm. The power vacuum among affiliates could lead to infighting or defections, weakening the collective's influence. Meanwhile, Durk's absence from the scene leaves a gap where his signature melodic trap anthems once dominated streaming platforms. While he may still release pre-recorded material, his inability to perform live, engage fans on social media, or work in studios undermines his relevance. High-profile collaborators, including Morgan Wallen, with whom Durk appeared on the hit Broadway Girls, and Drake, a frequent partner in the studio, might steer clear of public associations to shield their own brands. Relationships painstakingly cultivated over the past decade could unravel in an instant. Still, incarceration hasn't silenced every artist. Figures like Young Thug and T Grizzly have released music from jail, relying on their loyal fan bases. Durk might attempt the same, but his continued success hinges on preserving his authenticity. If his music starts feeling disconnected or out of touch, it risks flopping, an especially harsh blow for an artist whose 2023 album, Almost Healed, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. Durk's career was built on street credibility and raw storytelling, but federal charges put that foundation under intense scrutiny. His fans' Free Smirk movement, driven by unwavering loyalty, clashes with critics who call him out for exploiting street narratives while avoiding responsibility. A plea deal would present its own risks. Admitting guilt might keep him out of prison for life, but it could tarnish his image among core fans who might label him a snitch or soft. On the other hand, fighting the charges and losing would solidify him as a street martyr, someone who stayed true to his code but paid the ultimate price. Federal cases often hinge on cooperation from co-defendants, and prosecutors frequently offer leniency in exchange for testimony. If any OTF affiliate or alleged shooter flips, it could spawn damaging rumors. A co-defendant's claim that Durk directly ordered the hit would unravel his defense and stoke street tensions, potentially painting him as both a legal and personal liability, and even provoking retaliation against his family or crew. Durk's legacy hangs in the balance, straddling two starkly different outcomes. On one side, he could become a cautionary tale, a once bright star consumed by the same violence that fueled his rhymes, much like King Von or FBG Duck. On the other, an unlikely acquittal could elevate him as a survivor, a resilient symbol who weathered immense pressure and systemic targeting. Lil Durk's influence on Chicago's drill scene is impossible to overlook. As one of the last mainstream torchbearers for the genre, his potential downfall could weaken drill's national presence. Emerging artists such as Lil Zay Osama and C. Honcho might step into the spotlight, but the absence of a figure as prominent as Durk would leave a significant void. Conversely, a drawn-out legal saga could have the opposite effect, cementing Durk as a mythic figure in hip-hop history. Although the federal death penalty technically applies to certain murder-for-hire cases that result in death, its application is exceedingly rare. Only 16 federal executions have taken place since 1988. With Durk's lack of prior violent convictions and the circumstantial nature of much of the evidence, such an outcome is unlikely. Still, the theoretical possibility underscores the gravity of his trial and adds an intense psychological burden as October 2024 draws near. At this pivotal moment, Durk faces a collision of legal, cultural, and personal stakes. A plea deal might spare him the harshest punishment, but it would come at the cost of his reputation and standing among loyal fans. Choosing to fight the charges in court could preserve his legacy, if successful, but also risk losing everything. Meanwhile, the looming threat of a RICO expansion casts a long shadow, threatening not just Durk, but also his inner circle. What began as music reflecting the realities of Chicago's streets now stands on the brink of becoming a solemn eulogy for a career. All we can do now is wait and see how these events unfold.